Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneurship Drive. Today we are talking legal matters and why it is important to take into consideration your legal issues as you run your businesses. Today we have Phyllis Wangwe, who is the principal partner of Wangwe and Company Associates. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having me too.
Yes. I think we can dive right into it. And let's look at a startup, a person who is beginning to register a company. And there is, what is required for you to register a company as a person who is beginning a business?
As a person who's beginning a business, we have different forms of registration of companies.
Yes.
And or let's say different structures. We have different structures of companies. We have the sole proprietorships. We have the partnerships, both the normal one and the public partnerships. And then we have the companies. Apart from the companies, of course, we also have within the companies, we have the companies limited by guarantee. We have companies limited by shares. Then again, we have the non-governmental organizations, the NGOs, yes, which are normally not for profit. Yes, so those are the main structures of companies or business organizations that we have. Of course, save for the BMOs, the business management organizations, and maybe associations and societies. Yeah. But the most basic ones when somebody, an entrepreneur, is starting out, is a sole proprietorship, partnership, or company limited by shares.
Yeah.
Yes.
The most common one is a company limited by shares, I presume so.
Yes.
Or is it sole proprietors?
Well, it really depends on the sector that you're dealing with.
Yes. Because
when people are starting out, many people have started out as sole proprietors. The beauty of starting out also as a sole proprietor is that, okay, it gives the business that identity, but also with time you can upscale into being a company limited by shares. Yes.
And why would a sole proprietor upscale rather than just being a sole proprietor? Is there something that would drive him to upscale, or they will be missing out something as a sole proprietor? That's why they need to form a company?
Okay. Both have their advantages and disadvantages. And the main reason why people move from sole proprietorship to company limited by shares, for example, or guarantee, is that usually you find in a sole proprietorship, there is no proper distinction between the individual and the owner of the business. Which means if there is any liability for the company, for the business, then the proprietor is liable. However, when you upscale now and you get into a company and you register a company, the company has its own legal entity. The company is a person, for lack of a better word, is a legal person on its own, and you are a person also on your own. So you can clearly distinguish what is for the company and what is for you as an individual. So that is usually the beauty of now getting into a company, because then you're protected. Your assets as an individual are protected. You get to choose whether the assets that are there, you're investing them for the company or they're your own assets.
Yes.
So that is the beauty, and that is now when people now transition from one stage to the other. It's really more like growth. It's really growth, yes.
And when registering a company limited by?
There's limited by shares and there's limited by guarantee.
Limited by shares and limited by guarantee. Limited by shares, there is what you call the beginning shares, or sometimes we call it nominal shares. What informs that kind of like 100 shares? If you're beginning 2 people, 50-50. 50-50 is usually the number that guys take for nominal shares, and there may be a maximum of 100,000.
Okay, maybe just so that we are all on the same page, yeah?
Yes.
When registering a limited company in Kenya, then the minimum nominal share capital is 100,000 Kenya shillings. And it's usually divided into 1,000 shares. Legally, the law, which is the Company Act, allows a minimum of 1,000 shares with a nominal share capital of 100,000.
Yes.
So the value of 100 shillings per share.
Yeah.
In all limited liability company when they are being registered in Kenya. So that is the basic of how all the transactions go. That is the minimum that initially I don't really think it was the law as such.
Yes.
In the past, you could do it differently, 10,000, 50,000, but by practice, 100,000 is now actually captured as the minimum value, and that's the minimum nominal capital. Yes. Based on which you'll give out each shares, as if you're 2 or 3, you'll decide on how you want the shares divided.
So as we had said, this shares is not determined by the assets of the business at that particular time. It is by law.
First, there is law. First, we understand each other. First, there is the law.
There is the law.
First, there is the law which provides for that.
Yes.
So, however, in practice, you will find that some businesses will start with 30,000, others will start with 50,000, others will start with 1 million. So, I think with the wisdom, the drafters came up with a reasonable figure to start with, being 100,000. But in practice, you'll find as people are starting out their companies, they start with different amounts. Truly speaking, you can find somebody who's doing charcoal business might be comfortable starting out with 30,000. Somebody who is in the car business might not be able to do something until they are 1 million. But you'll find in practice, whenever these companies are being registered, the nominal value is 100,000. Now, based on that 100,000, that is the assumption, that is the nominal value for the company. And now you'll find as people get into the business, for example, there are 2 directors coming in together as shareholders. Many times you'll find them splitting what they get into the business.
Yes.
That they can decide each is bringing in 50,000 or each is bringing in 100,000. It really depends. And it's on the basis of that mainly usually you'll find the shareholding is maybe 50% or 30%. And then you'll also understand that there's this person who will give in some shareholding fine, but this person now works more. And probably based on that and how they understand each other, they will be compensated maybe by shares or by salary. Really, it's how they will agree. Yes.
Great.